my buddy Steve Smith back here on the show. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing excellent. How are you, Rich?
Well, Steve, you know where my allegiances lie on the football field, having grown up in New York City. And quarterback's out with mono. So
I know. I saw that.
What
you don't want to know my response?
Sure. The floor is yours, Steve Smith.
No, it's no.
It's not safe for work.
I'm not going there.
Steve Smith turning down contact to begin this edition of the Rich Eisen Show chat.
That was when I saw that. There's several inappropriate things that ran through my mind, and I just said, tragic, and moved on.
I know. I mean, it is potentially for the Jets season. I mean, it's the Browns this week, right? And then it's the Patriots the following week. And this is one of those debilitating illnesses. This could really put
it can linger for a long time.
Right? What do you think's going on in that Jets locker room right now, Steve?
Well, I think the good thing about what's going on is they already know. Management knows with the new coaching staff, with the new general manager, they know it's a process. The real question is, will the powers that be really understand that this is a process? And the biggest elephant in the room is the fans. Will they allow themselves to really relax and say, hey, even though you had high expectations with Lev Bell in that acquisition, you still have to understand that it's still you got a young quarterback. This team has not, with the head coach and the general manager, they have not ingrained their philosophy completely because they haven't had a full offseason yet. They still have to allow some of the acquisitions, some of the draft picks of the past that was from the old regime, figure out who needs to stay. And who do you need to move on from, or as the business world says, go in a different direction?
And then on the flip side, you got the Browns. I had Derrick Henry on the show in hour number one. He's one of the many Titans that delivered the punch in the mouth. I mean, they got hit in the mouth by Tennessee, and a 40-burger is what the Titans put on Cleveland in a game one similar to the Jets with so many high hopes that went in a totally different direction. How do you think they're going to respond to that in Cleveland, Steve?
The players or the fan base?
I guess the players, because they're the ones who committed 18 penalties in that loss, too.
Well, we don't really know how they're going to respond now on paper and with words. And unfortunately, you get a mic put in your face, and you have to search for words to, one, not place blame, not finger point, and not have accountability on yourself because you played a role into that loss. No matter how well you did, you were part of the loss because that's part of being a team. But I asked Network to go to Cleveland to observe their training camp because I wanted to see for myself what was this team about. And here's what this team is. When I think of the Cleveland Browns, I see them as a all-star. It's like an all-star game. Everybody's going to score points, but very few people are going to play defense. And the defense coordinator, Steve Wilks, Freddie Kitchens, the head coach, and co-offensive coordinator, they have to figure out which guys will do a little bit of defense, which guys won't, which guys, what routes can they run and which routes they cannot. Odell Beckham is a phenomenal wide receiver. But there is probably a route that he doesn't run as good as Landry and vice versa. And it takes some time to figure that all out. And unfortunately, they're going to have to figure it out in the game against their opponents because that's the only way you know. That's the only way you can figure out what someone's made of and what deficiencies and what great things they do is by baptism by fire, really experiencing on-the-job training.
And in terms of not play defense, you mean just do the all around game, right? Not actually play defense.
I just mean just not actually playing defense, just the all around game. Because when we watch an NBA All Star game,
yeah,
there's defensive player, there's defensive players of the year on that team. But an All Star game is about scoring points. It's about the finesse, the razzle and dazzle. And when you look at the lineup and the guys on paper, they can wow you. But in a football game, sometimes you don't need a guy that's going to wow you. Sometimes you need a guy who's just going to stuff and stop the run or get after the quarterback. And so you got to figure out, who's those guys and who can do what and who can't.
Steve Smith here on the Rich Eisen Show. And before we do move to the game that you're in town for, you live there, but
actually, I'm at the house.
I was about to say that you're in town to work tonight. Before we get to that, what did you think of Odell and the watch and all this stuff that's going on with his wristwatch,
Everybody talks about he's a distraction. First of all, I'm shocked how fast it went from a $500,000 to $350 to $190,000.
Yes, right.
That just shows you how much we just shoot out numbers. I don't think the watch is that huge of a deal. Because here's the thing: if someone asked me to wear a watch for X amount of dollars, I don't necessarily think I would say no or yes. I would think about it. But here's the thing. I had this. I said this. I wore a watch pretty much probably first 11 years of my career. And it was a different kind of watch. But I wore on my right hand, I wore a wristband. You go back in 2007, 2008, you'll see I wore a white wristband. And under that, I had a watch. What was that watch? It was a heart rate monitor. And I had a heart rate monitor under my pads, and I had it on my wrist. And I put the wristband on it because a few times in practice, I broke the watch.
Mm-hmm.
And those Polar watches are expensive, $150. And if you go through 3 or 4 of them, that's quite a bit of money just to be wasting money. And so, but why I wear it is I trained with it as well. And my trainer we would simulate how the game was. And why is that important? My heart rate at the height of a play, after making a play, my heart rate would be 225 beats per minute.
Jeez.
And so I looked at that as a way, how fast was I able to get my heart rate down? And I trained that way. So when I trained at 180 heartbeats per minute, and then we would see how long it took my heart rate to get down. Right? Now, I know it's different, but all I'm saying is this is the point. We all have things that we feel we need to do our job. And if it's watch, I used to always wear, I'm bald. I used to wear earrings. At 28 years old, I started to lose my hair. So my hair, just like a model coming out of that swimsuit model, coming out of the water with their hair backing up, when I score a touchdown, go on the sideline, I take my helmet off, and that's like me waving my hair coming out of that water. Those earrings shining off the sun, man, just made my day. I mean, we all have it. I know, Rich, you have some things that you must have in studio. That's a certain thing about you. That's what makes you great. That's why you've been doing what you've been doing. But you have some little things, some quirkiness that you have to have. We all have it.
And his just happens to be a $190,000 watch.
Listen, you got that nice minivan. You didn't turn that away when they offered you. I didn't see you dragging yourself. Oh, I can't take it. No, thank you. You had me looking at one.
Yeah. Did you get the Honda Odyssey, Steve? Did you get one?
Did they give me a free one? No, so I didn't get it.
Steve Smith here on the Rich Eisen Show. All right, let's talk about the receivers in Carolina. This past summer, the All or Nothing series on Amazon, it certainly grabbed a lot of attention that you told DJ Moore in front of him at a practice that you were going to bench him in fantasy. Would you start him?
I didn't bench him.
Okay.
I just asked, should I start him?
Okay.
And I'm not a guy that likes to talk about people behind their back. And I was joking. Me and DJ have a great relationship. We talk a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was joking around with him because we're still filling each other out. And there was a point where he kind of thought I was really like being around or trying to talk to him because I had ulterior motive. And I have no ulterior motive. I love the kid. And he's here in the city that I live and do business and on a team that I used to be on. So I'm personally excited to see how well he can do.
And would you start him in fantasy this week? Would you start him tonight if you had him?
Well, unfortunately, I would start Christian McCaffrey because he's the only guy that's getting passes. So I mean, that's just how it is. I got to do my job, and I'm still waiting for this wide receiver crew to show up a little bit because Christian McCaffrey is on pace to have 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards rushing. I personally, as a former wide receiver, I would have a problem with. They think that the only playmaker on the team are the tight end, and the running back. So I think it's a challenge for these guys, and we're going to see what Curtis Samuels and DJ Moore are really about, and this Carolina Panther wide receiver crew is really about. Because last year they were young, they let go of all their veterans. Now this is their team, but it's actually not. It's the Christian McCaffrey team.
Well, I'm not saying this to stir anything up. Is it the scheme or is it the trigger man that might be focused on McCaffrey as opposed to the wide receivers?
That's a great question. Well, Cam Newton is only going to throw it to the guy who's open, right? So people are talking about he's not pushing the ball down the field. Well, do you throw the ball to someone that isn't open, or do you throw it to the guys that are open? I watched the film. They got open sometimes, but you work with wide receivers all the time. Most wide receivers, are always what, Rich?
Open.
Okay.
Or vocal.
I don't see them boys complaining that they're open. That's because they aren't.
We'll see tonight.
So you're gonna ask Cam Newton to force a pass 20 yards down the field to a guy who's covered? What you think, they got Steve Smith out there?
Well done. Is Jameis's career on the line? I don't mean to sound alarmist, but week one sounded dreadful. This is his fifth season walk year here. As you know, Arians is a guy who doesn't mess around. And this is going to be his last go-round as an HC in the NFL, it appears. So what do you think?
I believe how come what's his cap number for this fifth year?
It's about $20 million and change, about $20.9 million, Steve.
$20 million in your fifth year, and we're asking, is he a franchise quarterback? In business. Basically what they do, take the cash, put it in the bucket, cut the hole out of the bucket, and pour all the money in there because they're getting no return on their investment. How many times have we seen non-quarterbacks get maybe a year or two, don't perform and get cut? 5 years, 3 head coaches, 3 different coordinators. Are we seeing a trend? Lovie Smith, third cutter. Now the quarterback whisperer. 3 coaches, $20 million, 5 years, haven't lived up to the expectation. At some point, you have to ask, is he a liability or an asset? Based off last week, I'm hinting on more of the liability, but he has hopefully a couple more weeks to decide that he's going to turn this around and become an asset.
Yeah, it's a big game tonight. It is a big game tonight for Tampa. It's a big game tonight, obviously, for Jameis, and obviously all of us at NFL Network exclusive on the net and at NFL Game Day kickoff at 6 Eastern Time. Colleen Wolfe, Joe Thomas, Michael Irvin, and you. And I have been told, a birdie has told me, a great feature involving you, Steve, and the Dream On 3 Foundation, where you took a young man named Brevard Wright Jr., who was suffering from epilepsy, to the game last week. Is that a true rumor, sir?
That is a true rumor. I was asked and inquired about through Dream on 3, I work with them down here in Charlotte. They're a great organization. They basically kind of have that same wheelhouse of Make-A-Wish. Not everyone has life-threatening illnesses that they work with, but a lot of them do. A lot of them have some illnesses. And so he came across my desk and said, hey, this is Kid Brevard. He loved you as a football player and wants to throw you a pass. I'm like, well, I'm no longer a football player, but how can I honor this young man who looks up to me? So we sat here and started, me and some folks started kind of trying to figure out, called the folks at work and said, hey, I'm not a football player, but can we allow him to hang out with me? And so last week for the first game, drove up to his house, got to work with the Panthers, got him some tickets, him and his family, his mother, his dad, and his 2 sisters. And so they got him a car service. And so what I told him, I said, man, let's go in style. Picked him and his dad up, went to the game. We parked, got on the sideline. He met Julius Peppers, Coach Rivera, Christian McCaffrey. And he threw me the pass, but he also got to meet the new owner, Mr. Dave Tapper. And we just hung out and talked. He stayed for the game. I had to go watch all the other games. And then now, today, he is shadowing me on the set as well.
Oh, is that right?
Awesome.
Okay.
Yes, he's shadowing me on the set as well because I'm not a football player. So he wanted to go to the Panthers game. Let's make that happen. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But now let's go ahead and see how Steve Smith, the non-football player, goes about his day-to-day. And so he's going to join us, I believe, on the set today.
Oh, that's amazing.
But he's going to be hanging out with me today, the rest of the day. So he went to the game last week, and then he's hanging out this week at the game. And so Dream on 3 gave me an opportunity to love on him and give him an opportunity to make his wish come true. And I've had a blast. And what it's really done, it has allowed me to recenter myself and realize, man, sports is a conduit to do a lot of different things, and it helps a lot of other people. And when I get the opportunity, with all the nonsense set aside, the human element of it, the dad in me, the husband, I try my very best to take the Steve Smith Sr. football player out and be Stevan Smith Sr., the man, the husband, the coworker, in a way, the same way you, Marshall, Dion, sometimes Michael, love on me and teach me and guide me, because you guys are my mentors. I'm younger, and so you guys are showing me the way, and so I'm just trying to pay it forward like how you do with St. Jude's and just all the things that you do. I'm just trying to follow your footsteps, big bro.
Well, Steve, you are the man, and I'm glad, again, the Stevan Smith that you mentioned, we've all seen it. We all see what a family man you are and how you put your kids first. We were at that NFL 100 kickoff as well in New York. You had your family with you, and it's great to see that on display. That'll be on tonight's NFL Game Day kickoff. You're the man, Steve Smith. You knew that already.
No, you are the man, Rich. I'm just a squirrel trying to get some of your snack.
Have a great cast tonight, Steve. I look forward to seeing Brevard out there with you.
Appreciate it.
Take care. You got it. Steve Smith, Sr., Stevan.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download The Rich Eisen Show app.